Thank you guys for coming. It's nice to actually meet you for the first time, and it's hopefully these girls come. But the Cutts family, there's a girl called Georgia who you might have seen on the online program. They wanted to meet me in person the other week, and they've been begging all month, like, while I'm in UK, like, catch up, and I'm like, I can't, I'm busy. And then finally one day came free and I caught up with them, and when I opened the door, they're like, oh my God, he's so tall, you know, and they're like, you're real. And they didn't, and it was funny for me because, you know, I know who I am and I'm real and whatever, and she's just down and she's like, oh my God, it is you. Like, she thought I was some, like, you know, some virtual kind of, you know, web guy, but this is me. Thanks for coming today. It's not going to be a boring seminar like you've probably heard before. Hands up, have you been to like a supportive forum thing before where you kind of hear someone talk about the illness? Has anyone? How was it?
Boring.
Yeah. Did you walk away with much information that you could apply to your life? A little bit? Yeah. So, you know, my goal of this is one, to bring people with chronic fatigue together, because I think it's important that you look around the room and realise that you're not the only person suffering. And I think that's the hardest part, is it's such an isolating illness, and, you know, if you haven't had it or been through it, it's hard to understand what it's really like. You know, and I guess that's why I started doing what I do 6 years ago now, professionally, was because I didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't have, you know, I guess that shining light to say, hey, it is possible, hey, you can get better, hey, this is what to do. Probably like you, I got shut down a lot by doctors. Hands up if you've been to a doctor and told you you don't have an illness, or, you know, everyone. Yeah, you know, and it sucks, and it's quite, it makes me angry from a personal perspective, because I'm going, but it is true. You know, and you guys are examples that it is real. I mean, we wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't. We'd all be partying and having fun and, you know, working 24 hours a day if we could, yeah? So that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to bring you guys in. And two, to also give you some helpful information and actually start moving forwards, because, you know, a lot of people will say to you, if you do get better from chronic fatigue syndrome or ME, that then you didn't have the illness in the first place. I think it was, I was speaking to you before about that, and I've had, you know, people tell me that, well, you mustn't have had ME if you got better. Like, that's not possible. You know, or, you know, you'll have other people trying to push facts down your throat saying that, you know, it's some, you know, kind of pill you can take or magic cure. And I'm also here to tell you that that's not true either. But I am also a walking example that you can get better. I wouldn't be travelling around the world for the last 12 weeks if that wasn't true. Hey, how you going? Come and have a seat. You know, so it's really important to, one, yeah, you know, what you're going through is real, but two, also, you know, hello, I'm standing in front of you and it is possible, and hopefully one day you know, every single person in this room will be, you know, that shining light as well, and do amazing things, and I'll talk about some pretty cool stories later on. And pretty much today what I'm going to go through is talk about chronic fatigue syndrome really quickly, because that's kind of boring after a while. You know, and we need to know the facts, but at the end of the day, the facts aren't going to help us get better, okay? Second of all, talk about kind of what you can start doing on a day-to-day basis that's going to improve you, not just physically, but also mentally. And then give you some really cool tips on what I think is really important right now, which was what I'm seeing with a lot of patients, either, you know, finding it hard to move forwards with their recovery, and just the supportive shifts with family, friends, and you know, that kind of thing as well, because it ain't easy on your own. You know, it really isn't. It's tough. So we'll get started like that. So first of all, how many times have you heard that someone will come to you and go, but you look great? Yeah? You know, oh, you look so good. What's going on? You don't have chronic fatigue. Or what about, you know, oh, I'm tired all the time too. Yeah, you guys get that? Yeah, I was staying with a patient recently. I was helping him, and his lovely wife would come into the kitchen. She's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And like, we both, me and the patient just looked at each other, and we're like, and he's like, don't you dare say that. You know, and there was lots of little fights, and I said, no, you've got to understand that, you know, we all get tired, but there's tired and there's CFS tired. It's completely different, you know. And I guess that's what we're going to distinguish, and we'll talk about in a sec. But pretty much, ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, is real. All right. the first thing you need to know, it's not depression, it's not all in your head. Alright, I don't want to talk about it too long because I've spoken a lot about it before. I put a video up on YouTube one day, I was really angry, I did a quick video and I put it out, it had like 9,000 views really quickly and people really liked it because it was true. And I was speaking from my heart and saying, you know what, I'm sick of people saying it's all in my head, or I'm sick of people saying you know, maybe you're just depressed. Go see a shrink, go see a psychologist and, you know, and fix your problems, your emotional issues. It's not like that, you know. It's a multifaceted illness, and this is the reason why it's so hard to improve and get better, and it takes a while, is because there's so many things going on. You know, you've got all these symptoms: constant exhaustion, muscle aches and pains, brain fog. Hands up if you seriously like look at a piece of paper and then a second later forget what it said. Okay, hello, that's real, you know. Post-exertional malaise, that's a big one. I want to talk about movement and daily activities and stuff later, but post-exertional malaise is the biggest one, and the reason why we always have setbacks and relapses, and we need to be mindful of that. Dizziness, nausea, every time we wake up we feel sick, insomnia. The hardest part with chronic fatigue syndrome is, you know, it's a sleepy syndrome, but we can't sleep. It doesn't make sense, it's so annoying. If only we could have a good night's sleep, things would be better, yeah? Flu-like symptoms, sore throat, swollen glands, anxiety, and secondary depression. And I think anyone with this illness emotionally is going to feel quite down. Tell me someone, you know, I can't name one person who wouldn't be angry or frustrated if they couldn't do the things they once were able to do or wanted to do. It's as simple as that, you know. I remember, I think it was the night I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and it was like a 9-month kind of battle to get diagnosed in the first place. We went to 40 different specialists across Melbourne, Australia. Everyone just kind of gave different opinions, go to that guy, see him first, and then come back. And finally a guy said, you know, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, this is it. And he just, you know, and we were kind of like, oh great, you know, so what do we do? And he goes, I don't really know. You know, maybe go home, rest, you know, push through it, do some runs, sweat it out. It was kind of, you know, it was a relevant, you know, education, but at the same time it was kind of, in a sense it was good to get diagnosed because it was a relief, but it also made me frustrated because then I was like, well, what do I do now? And that was the hardest part. And I remember going home that night and I took off my basketball shoe and I threw it so hard against my bedroom wall and I punched the wall. And I remember, like, it just took so much energy to punch that wall that I cried myself to sleep that night. And that was, for me, that was like, that moment was like, far out, like, how am I going to overcome this, you know? So as much as it is a neurological, physical disease, no one can tell me that it isn't easy emotionally and mentally, especially when the people around you don't understand. And that's why I started all this stuff so long ago. You know, how to get diagnosed, well, pretty much your symptoms, every country is different, but in Australia right now, your symptoms have to persist for more than 2 to 6 months, and there have to be 6 or more symptoms persisting at a time. Again, it's changing all the time with the research and doctors and all that kind of stuff, but that's a general rule of thumb. And with the cause and cure, it's unknown. I attended the world's biggest chronic fatigue conference in America earlier this year, which feels like a year ago because I've been travelling so much. And it was really disappointing, the fact that, you know, the researchers were just throwing around the cause and the cure, but they weren't worried about the actual practical steps that people need to take right now to get better. The best thing that came out of that whole 3-day conference was the fact that self-care was the #1 thing that helped people get better. And these guys are still looking for the cause and cure. And for me, that it was a relief because it validated what I do works. But also the second thing is that we're in control of this to a degree. You know, and for so long, you know, my parents can vouch for this, that we were looking for quick fix answers or tablets or pills or just something that was going to, you know, get me better, get me back on the basketball court, get me back to school full time, to live. And there is none. And, you know, one of the things that I want to do is make sure that you guys don't keep setting yourself up for failure and doing that as well. Because it's expensive, emotionally it's upsetting, and physically it's debilitating. You know, I've seen patients get worse from advice that people think that's going to cure them. I had one patient that got given cancer treatment for chronic fatigue syndrome, you know. It just doesn't make sense. So the best thing that came out of that conference was that self-care was the #1 helpful tool with people with chronic fatigue syndrome. And so when people say to me, oh, so what do? You just give them a pill and, you know, motivate them and all that kind of stuff. And it's not about that, but if you can control your controllables, then we know that over time we can improve. And I've got great walking examples here today that we'll talk about later who are in the program and, you know, are able to travel 2 or 3 hours away to come here, which is fantastic. Just quickly, everyone's got a reason or you know, has a theory behind getting chronic fatigue syndrome or ME. And so, you know, these are some of the things that have come up that I've seen in research. You know, post-viral syndromes like glandular fever, mono in America they call it, overtraining, traumatic events is a big one at the moment that's coming out, and stress, mental and physical stress placed upon the body. Now, usually for me, what I see with my patients is a combination of all, yeah, or 1, 2 or 3. For me, I was overtraining. I was playing basketball 14 times a week, so twice a day. I had school full time. I had my first girlfriend, so that was kind of stressful. Yeah, that girl. You know, and then I got glandular fever, which was post-viral syndrome. I was sick for 6 months. I kept pushing through. I kept playing basketball because I was a hero, which I wasn't. And then eventually one day it just all crumbled, and I couldn't run. My body started to break down. I went to run on the court and I felt like I was going backwards, and then that night I went to bed and I woke up and I opened my eyes and I went to get out of bed mentally and physically, my body didn't move, so I was paralysed from here, it felt like. I remember screaming I think I screamed for help from my mum. And yeah, it was a tough time, but again it was scary because it kind of came on and I was just ignoring the signs. And then all of a sudden it just went bang, you know, and I think that 6 months was super scary, but the good news is I'm standing here now and you know, not just me, but thousands of other people also have this covered. Okay, so self-care. This is one of my favourite triangles, and I've got a big whiteboard at my centre and I get my clients to write stuff on. And one of my first seminars, I had 70 people come to it, and I knew what I was going to talk about, but you know, I didn't really have any tools or anything, and this was on my whiteboard, and I was like, no, that's kind of cool, you know. Survive, accept, adjust, believe, achieve. And as soon as I looked at it, I related it back to chronic fatigue syndrome. Hands up if you're in survival mode. Good. Some of you are, some of you aren't. Yeah. You know, it's a constant battle on and off, yeah. We might be in acceptance mode, we might be going well, we might be achieving stuff, but then we might get back to, you know, survival mode. But what's important is, and what's relevant to chronic fatigue syndrome and just life, and whatever we want to relate it to, is we always start here. You know, I believe that for change to happen, we need to hit crisis point in all areas of our life, whether it's health, relationships, finances, you know, all that kind of stuff, jobs, but mainly to do with health. You know, until something happens to us and stops us, we're like, oh, we've got to change now. You know, it's our bodies, or, you know, our way of life is, okay, we need something to happen to us in order to change. If you can stop yourself before you get to crisis, that's fantastic, but that's never happened to me. I'm not sure if that's happened to you. With chronic fatigue syndrome, first 6 months is survival, just like me. You know, 6 months, doctors, tests, you know, on and off, you know, hope and then no hope. And then when you're diagnosed and hopefully you get some good advice, then you can get into the acceptance mode. And this is, for me personally, what I've learned and what I've seen with, you know, over 1,000 patients individually, that once you accept where you are at, you know, with your current situation, health and circumstances, you can make changes. And usually in your head they're bad changes because you're letting go of all the stuff that you used to do. Okay, because you've got to manage your lifestyle a bit better. So once you accept the fact that you've got your illness and where you're at in certain situations and circumstances, then you can make a kind of a strategy or plan to overcome that. The online guys know that, you've obviously seen it for the videos, but adjusting is the biggest, most important thing with all this, with your lifestyle. Because you can have the illness, you can feel all these symptoms and you can kind of push through it, but until you adjust and actually do something that's going to change it for the better, then nothing's going to change for you. You can go around in circles like we most of us do, push, crash, push, crash, push, crash. Hands up if you're in that cycle or you're used to it. Can you give us an analogy? What's the latest with you?
The last one is, we had a big, so I work 6 hours a week, but last week there was a big event in London. Well, I'm from Bristol, and like everyone from the UK and was around, like came all together. So I don't usually get out of bed until about 9:30, 10. I was on the train by 8.
Yeah.
I did events all day.
Yeah.
Luckily, I managed to like lie down for a couple of times during the day. Thank you. But then on the train home, we were all drinking. Didn't get home till about 9, and then so up until yesterday morning, couldn't get out of bed.
Okay, cool. So let's use that as an example. So, what things were overdoing it? I can already pick up 2 already.
Getting up really early.
2 hours before you normally.
Yeah. And usually, like I just take it easy in the morning anyway. Pretty much constant all day. So I had a few times to lie down, but it was always either socialising
Not proper rest breaks.
or and then drinking on the way home, and just didn't get to eat periodically throughout the day. It was really scrappy. So.
Yeah. And how long what was your setback for?
Not too. It wasn't too bad. So all of Thursday I couldn't get out of bed. Friday I made it to the sofa.
I think I read your article.
Yeah, and then yesterday then I got the train back up to London yesterday evening.
So hands up, you can relate to that. And we do have life events where we have stuff on. We're going to do it. Just like today, I'm sure this is a big thing for you guys to come here.
It's a hell yeah event today.
It's a hell yeah, thank you. But yeah, sometimes you got to do these things, which is one of them is today for some of you, and sometimes you can't avoid that. But majority of the time, if you have a long-term plan, a long-term goal to get better, as in better health for you or whatever that looks like, and we'll talk about it later, visualization and goal setting, you need to have an exit plan that's going to get you there. And if you get off that exit plan or that goal, it's kind of hard to go anywhere if you don't have anything to aim for, And if you're kind of just like, oh, I hope I feel good today, and wake up and then I'll feel crap and then be let down and do another day. There'd be days or nights where I'd lie in bed and pray, and I wasn't even Catholic really, that I'd get better, and then I'd wake up tomorrow cured. That just never happened. But until I kind of accepted, and to be honest, this is a hard word to take. This took me 2 years to accept the fact that I was really sick and then I needed to listen to my body, and improve myself and adjust my lifestyle. But once I started to adjust, I started to actually notice difference. Notice change in my body, get more energy, be able to do more things without feeling worse. That's the biggest thing. You want to be able to do stuff without feeling worse. If you do something and you feel worse from it, then that's a sign for me that you need to adjust and accept where you're at and change again. Okay? Hands up if you think hope and belief is really important with this illness, if you want to get better. Awesome. Cool. I think this is the biggest thing, this one here. And it was awesome. When I was in America for this conference, my doctor who diagnosed me was there talking. And he did a speech on me. And he said, and I was in the room and we were sitting there, and he said hope. He said hope. And he just kept saying hope. This is in front of, all these researchers, all these doctors. And he brought out his guitar. He's a funny, eccentric kind of doctor, but world-renowned. He wrote the foreword for my book as well. And, he just said hope, hope, hope. And he said, without hope, no one's got anything. And it was from a doctor to say that was pretty powerful. He's the one that's, telling these, sick patients every single day to come in or, this is your diagnosis or take this medication. But if he's saying the number one thing is hope, then that's really important to keep in the back of your head. Because without it, you've got no direction. Have a seat, girls. You can sit here if you want. Okay. And so, do you want to just grab that chair maybe?
Oh, there's more chairs up the front. Aren't you lucky?
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're in detention after. We'll talk about it. And so this doctor was just really, like his whole speech was on hope. And because without it, you don't have anything. And, I can relate to that. I remember seeing a sick boy. He was only 9 years old with chronic fatigue syndrome. And his mum was begging me to see him. And I didn't have any time. I couldn't fit him in, and she's just like, please just see him. We've seen everyone. No one wants to work with him. He's, and he came in and he couldn't even walk up the stairs. I only got like 10 stairs to my office. And I took one look at him, and he was great. I've never seen someone so sick in my life. And I looked at this kid and I was like, if I don't think he's going to get better, then who will? And it was up to me to believe in that kid and know that, if we can just improve 1%, then that's better than nothing, because right now he's on 0. And so it started like that, and I used to pick him up from downstairs and carry him up the stairs every week. And 2 years on now, he's completely better. He's back at school full time. He's a phenomenal kid. His name is Jack Solomon. You might have seen him on my Facebook a few times. But without that hope and belief at the start, there would be nothing. He would still be back there, And of course you've got to do the right things. Hope and belief is really important, but you still have to do the right things. And it was a long, endurance race, if you like, to get back to where it got. But it's a fantastic example that if you have hope and belief, then anything's possible. Now that kid has gone on to make apps, phone apps, like iPhone apps. He made the Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Health Centre one, which you might have on your phone. It's free, I think. So he made that as a 14-year-old kid. Like, he's phenomenal. I hate hanging out with him because he's so smart. And he was a pain in the butt to train, because like he'd come in and I'd be like, okay, we're gonna, you're eating right, make sure you lie down, we're gonna have your feet up for a while, elevate them. And he'd have an answer for everything I did, but in a wrong context, but scientifically, blah, blah, blah. And one day I said, that's it, go back to your mum, like, I'm not seeing you again, you're annoying me, if you're coming in and listening to me, do it, otherwise that's it. And then when I put that on him, we became friends, and we kind of had a happy medium. But, once you start believing in yourself, and sometimes it takes someone else to believe in you before you believe in yourself, and you can start to achieve. And when I talk about achieving, I don't mean like massive gains and results, like getting better as an achievement. I'm talking about the small things like getting up and going to the bathroom, maybe to start with, or like catching a train for the first time, or going to work for an hour, or school for an hour, or talking to a friend on the phone for half an hour. Sometimes we forget how far we've come, and I think it's important just to pick out those tiny milestones. Like the time I went to PE class in year 11, and you're looking at me healthy and, obviously not super sick, but, you've got to remember, I was like an old grandpa. I was, 20 kilos lighter than I am now, and used to wear 4 jumpers to school. I went to PE, I said, Mum, I don't think I can go. And she said, why not? I said, I can't walk to PE class, like it's just too hard. And that day we had to walk down the beach, which is 200 metres from our classroom. And I was crapping my pants, I was just like, I'm going to go backwards, I'm going to die today. That's what it's like, is you feel like you're so weak, it's like, oh, this is not going to happen, I'm not going to see anyone tonight, I'm going to be in hospital. And, so we got to PE class, and the whole time in my head, anxiety, freaking out, like what's going to happen, am I going to go backwards? That's half the problem with this illness, you're always wondering what's going to happen next. I did that class, and it was the hardest thing at the time that I'd ever done. When I got back home, I was so excited that I did it. And I didn't even do the PE class, all I did was walk to class, sit and watch the boys run around, and then come back, and I was stoked. And I remember going home and just like writing on a piece of paper and, and patting myself on the back, and as stupid as it sounds, that's what you've got to do. You've got to look at those small achievements, because over time they add up. I remember working for 1 hour. It was jumping junior jackos. It was basketball kids 8 years old. And it was the hardest thing that I'd ever had to do for that hour. But for me, once I got through it, it was like, okay, I can do this. And I kept backing myself, And after I kept backing myself, then more belief came, and I started to achieve more things. And over time, it just adds on. And yeah, of course, there's setbacks, and I'll talk about that soon. Now, just for anyone who's just come in before, toilets behind, drinks there, apples and bananas there, couch over there if anyone needs a little nap, understandable. So I want to quickly talk about, I finished up on the hope thing, but Michelle Michelle's story is a quick one, and we were talking about hope for the guys who didn't come before, and I believe it's one of the biggest things you need, and we all need in life. And Michelle got in contact with me maybe like 6 months ago, or a bit longer, and it was crying out for help and whatever. Can you help me? Can you help me? And she had a list of all her problems, and I've never seen a list so big. And I've seen thousands of lists, and I was just like, whoa, this lady's just not well. And it wasn't just ME and chronic fatigue syndrome, it was a whole host of issues. Anyway, I was a bit worried about her, and I was worried about her helping her, because I was like, well, maybe I'm not, I don't think I can help her, maybe she's that bad. And this captain, she looked so bad, like I've never seen, the same as that boy, grey, and 9 years she'd had it for, lying in bed. She didn't leave the house for 3. Her mum, who was like 85, looks after her. And I said, I just don't know whether it's going to work for you or not, whether you're going to be able to do stuff. And she said, I'm just willing to try it, I'll give it a go. And I said, okay, cool, see how you go, let's talk in a month, take it really easy, to get to the toilet was a marathon for her at the time. Anyway, we Skyped a month later, and I was on holidays in Queensland, and I remember Skyping and looking at her, and it was like a different person. The eyes had come back, the skin was kind of, gloomy, and I know that, on the outside, we look fine, but you could tell there was a difference made. And I'm like, what the hell have you done? What have you taken? What program have you been doing? Because it was pretty phenomenal to see a lady actually sitting up and smiling. And she said, I've just realised that I can do things. I can do things. I can sit up for more than 2 minutes at a time. I can go to the bathroom once a day. I can walk there once a day. I can use my walking stick there. I can talk to my mum 5 minutes a day. And from there, it built on. Now that lady's now, I think she's walking around the beach for 20 minutes at the moment. She drives herself to appointments now. She hadn't got in a car for 3.5 years. Phenomenal. But it all started with believing in herself. And she'd been told that she was never going to get better. And when she went to see her doctor, who was a specialist, he's like, what the hell have you done? How have you improved this much? And although she's not running around and running laps and all that kind of stuff, she's got her life back, and that's what's important. And I talk, everyone's like, oh, so when do you think I'll get better? When do you think I'll be cured? And it's not about that for me. What it's about is just improving and getting that functionality back in your life. Because over time it adds on anyway. It really does. So you can use this as a plan, and I think this is relative to everyone's life. When we're in crisis point, we're just in survival mode. Okay, we need to get out of that in order to get out of survival mode. You need to accept where you're at and your current situation and circumstances. And this doesn't just mean health, relationships, whatever you want it to, whatever you relate to. Some of you don't have CFS or ME, but once you accept that, then you adjust your lifestyle accordingly. Start to believe, and then you can start to achieve, and over time you just improve slowly but surely. Okay. But Michelle's story is quite amazing. And for me, it's not that I don't get excited, but I see so many different people every week that it's for me to see her improve within that month, and it's scary. Really scary that she actually started to improve and still continues to improve. Okay. Stop the push and crash cycle. Hands up if you have the ups and downs. We spoke about this before. Yeah. For the first 2 years of my illness, it was every second week that I was in bed wiped out, if that makes you feel any better. It was constant pushing and crashing, not being able to listen to my body, didn't know when to listen to my body, when to push through, when not to push through. A lot of you, has anyone heard about baseline? Yeah, so a few of you do baseline and the boom and bust cycle. Yeah, okay. So, I call it the valley of death rather than the push and crash. Yeah, because it's more real. So let's just say we start here on an okay day, and an okay day is pretty crap, but good for us, the average person, that's what it's like. We might have an event like today that we're going to have payback for. Or an event where you have to go out, like was it Hannah before, you have to go out and push yourself through that day. Coming up here, this is your event, you use up your energy, and it's funny, payback sometimes doesn't come on straight away, but usually you can feel it when you get to that threshold and your symptoms flare up. Oh man, I just still remember like my glands, every time something was going to happen, my legs would start to go and my 2 glands would just pop up out of nowhere. And I'd just come crushing down, you know. And this is what it was like. So this is you know, this is in bed right here. Not in a nice way, you know, I wish I was probably out playing, but you know, this valley of death is you know, that's what it's like. It just comes crashing down. And so in terms of progression, it's very hard to progress because this might take you 1, 2, 3 days or weeks to get back just to where you started from. And this is the problem with recovery, and this is probably one of the best tools you can use in order to avoid going up and down all the time. Is, you know, if you can kind of have that flow-on effect of, you know, a few okay days, a few bad days, but generally just consistent, then your energy levels, you know, will start to rise and your functionality will be better. One thing that's really important is, rather than aiming to feel better, or rather than, you know, having more energy, what's more important is being able to do more without feeling worse. That's the most important thing. So if you can do more without feeling worse, then you're kicking goals. Okay? Don't worry about the feeling better yet and the energy, that comes later. Okay? That's just how it is. But if you can do stuff and function and not get worse, then that's massive. A lot of us kind of, you know, and I was in that same boat for a while, I hope I just feel better tomorrow so I can do this, and then, you know, and I mean, you guys relate to this, when you do have a good day, you just want to use up every bit of energy you've got. You want to get everything done. You know, see your friends, you want to, you know, you want to go to the party, you want to, you know, it might be something simple like just watching a movie or talking to friends, and, you know, use up all your energy in that day and then you come crashing down. Has anyone seen my YouTube video 10 credit rule, the golden rules? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Cool. So one of the things that I came up with was the 10 credit rule, and you've got 10 credits to spend per day, and you've got to use them wisely. And if you overspend your credits, then you're going to come crashing down. You've got to rebuild the credits just to get back to 10 and then go again. So what you want to do is be able to pace yourself, and I'm sure you would have seen on every single CFS website the word pacing. I don't even think it's on my website because I don't really like the word and it's kind of boring, but pacing initially is quite important, but maintaining and progressing is what I like to say more. So if you can maintain, progress. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but, you know, in terms of progressing, you should only progress, you know, 5 or 10% of the time. We all get a bit excited sometimes and we want to just kind of go, okay, we're feeling a little bit better today, so we're going to double it. And we do 100% more. You know, and that's true, it's 100% more. So we've got to be kind of careful with that. Okay, so it's really important that when you are progressing, whether it's with movement, we'll talk about movement later because it is a topic that we need to talk about. You know, functions, work, all that kind of stuff, seeing friends, socialising, incremental changes are the most important. No point going from 0 to hero and then coming crashing back down. Yeah.